Hello, everybody. I'm Bennet Tchaikovsky, also known as the accounting professor, and I'm here to give you a little bit of an update on transferring to UC Santa Barbara from a community college. So I'm updating this as for today because as all of you who are getting those admissions notifications, that's absolutely awesome. And let's go ahead and get started. Before we begin, just a few important notes. Don't believe a word I'm saying. I have no reason to lie to you. However, it's my opinion. And there are my opinions only, not South Orange County, not any other affiliated organization. The presentation is for educational purposes only. Any distribution is strictly prohibited outside of my express written permission. And let's go over here and let's talk about transferring in general. If you are transferring it, and this is really kind of talking about to really for accounting majors, and right now we're probably in one of the most challenging, we are probably in one of the most challenging recruiting times ever. Um, if you ever need help, like I'm here to help you become a CPA and just kind of give you guidance along the way. Well, let's just kind of go through and kind of take, I always like to give this kind of example just because I think it's probably like the better visual representation. So the first thing is that just to kind of give you context here about Old Man Bennett, when I went through recruiting, I was interviewing in basically the winter quarter or January. And I was interviewing over here for essentially over here for summer. What's happened now is that recruiting is actually taking place here or towards August. And this was at least what it was like for last year. And this is basically going here to summer 2028. Now, what you notice here is that as a transfer student, this is going to put you in a terrible place. Why is it going to put you in a terrible place? Because most of these are already gone. So when it comes to internships, which can be incredibly important, the one thing I will tell you is you do not want to leave school without having a job. If you leave school without having a job, it's a much more challenging process. But you want to try to get a job while you're in school. And obviously, with most firms, they like to do a try and buy. So that's going to essentially be through the accounting internship. But when you look at this over here, when you get to Santa Barbara or your school of choice, if you want to go Big Four, this is what you're facing. And I even know for like RSM, they're also, I'm pretty sure that they're full for summer 27. Now, when it comes to different regions like San Francisco, LA, maybe a lot easier. I'm from Orange County, California. That area can be a lot harder. I think what also is a little bit challenging is that our economy, thanks to our overregulation, and again, I'm not playing political sides here, is that we are overregulated as a state. We have way too many businesses moving. I've seen a lot of my former students get laid off from firms. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but it's not a lot, but there's definitely a handful that are out there that are getting laid off. So I would just really kind of tell you that, when you're planning your journey as a transfer student, I would give yourself 2 years and a quarter. Right. So if I'm at UCSB, UC Santa Barbara is on the quarter system, and it goes by really quickly. So if you give yourself an extra quarter, that's going to give you a lot more time to recruit. Now, the advantage is that basically once you are offered an internship, especially a summer internship, that's generally going to lead to a full-time job offer. One of the other things I also want to share with you is that a lot of accounting firms are moving away from downtown LA. I have heard that PwC, Deloitte, as well as KPMG are getting out of downtown. Again, don't believe me, but this is what I've heard. They're getting out of downtown LA and they're going to places like Redondo Beach, El Segundo, more things on the west, not the west side of LA, but basically the South Bay. So again, something for you to kind of go through and consider. So going back over here to the presentation, right? So you need to walk in to your wherever you're going. Your resume's got to be done. And the resume for accounting is you have to say when you're going to be eligible to sit for the exam. When the recruiter looks at your resume, the first thing they're going to say is, well, when can I actually go through and hire you? Imagine that you are a player going on to a draft board, and the draft board consists of different engagements. There you go. So make sure that you have telling everybody in the world when you're going to be graduating. So when you're going to be have the units completed. UCSB is not cheap. Any college that you're going to is going to be pretty expensive. Housing, especially cost of living, very, very expensive. And this is true. It's UC Santa Cruz. This is true at, UCLA, San Diego, and you know, make sure that if you are going to go to UC Santa Barbara, that you can financially handle it. Also, too, your LinkedIn profile's got to be done. You need to be proficient in artificial intelligence. You have to know Excel. And that's just one of the things that's going to hopefully set you apart. Now, when you're using AI, you've got to be careful about how you answer those types of questions. You don't want to go up and say, oh yeah, I'm going to take my client information and put it on ChatGPT, because no, you have to put it behind a firewall at your particular accounting firm, because you do not want to violate Reg FD. That's full and fair disclosure. That's a federal offense, and we do not want to commit federal crimes. So resume, know that you can basically afford it, getting professional early. And also what's really important is whatever school you choose, you, it's not going to be on the name only. You have to get involved with the Accounting Association, Accounting Society, Beta Alpha Psi, fraternity, sorority. I don't care what it is. You've got to get involved, and you've got to try to take a leadership role at some point in time. When you are going through basically getting hired by a big four firm, a lot of my students have told me in the past that it is very similar to going through fraternity or sorority rush. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through and transferring. You've got to get involved though, and you're only going to be there for a pretty short amount of time. So just kind of remember that going through. Now, why UC Santa Barbara? I'm a gaucho. I love UCSB. I had a great time. And I am forever grateful. I'm going to shout out to my professors, Henry Sander, John Trawler, rest in peace, Lisa Moss, Kobe Harmon, Don Loster. They literally shaped the way that I was thinking about accounting. And I've tried to carry on their teaching legacy since then. But the way that UC Santa Barbara does it, it is absolutely amazing. Their quality of their accounting education is unlike any other. I'm a huge fan of problem-based questions for accounting. Why is that? If you're giving multiple choice, you're doing a disfavor to your students. Why is that? If we go and look at that CPA exam, half of it are what we call task-based simulations. If you are taking accounting classes and you're not going to become a CPA, I don't know why you're doing it then. What's the point of putting yourself through academic hell? Well, my classes at UCSB were not they were pretty challenging. So if you're putting yourself through all of this, I mean, you've got to want to become a CPA, right? And most accounting firms are only going to hire you if you're CPA eligible. So again, I love UCSB. You have to go though, visit the campus, go visit it, go during when school's in session, walk around, check it out, go to Freebirds, grab a burrito, do all those different types of things, but you have to go to the campus. Do not go to a school where you have not gone through and visited. So life in Isla Vista, bike culture, yeah, there's a lot of good things up there that you can do your research on. You get around on a bike. Do not drink any. By the way, this is something that's really important. If you're at a party, if you got something in a red cup and you step out of boundaries, Isla Vista Foot Patrol is going to be right there. They're going to cuff you and you're going to pay fines, and it's going to be a disaster. So do not drink in public, drink in private, drink on private property. The Ivy Foot Patrol, great guys and girls, but do not mess around with them. Like, don't cause problems. It's again, it's one of those things they deal with this all the time. But if you drink, if you go over the line, it's not going to be good. It is very close to a beach. A lot of people like that. I don't really think I visited the beach that much, but hey, and I also live close to a beach now in Huntington. But if that's your thing, I have heard that there's a lot of tar on the beach. So again, but check it out before you go through and do it. Off-campus life, there's a party every night at UCSB. And the one other kind of thing I would say with that is that what's really unique about Isla Vista, and I've heard this from students, is that you have Santa Barbara City College students that are there. And usually what happens with those students is that they go to SBCC, but they live in Isla Vista. And that's generally not going to work out because unless you have a lot of discipline, because at the community colleges, you have to go to class. At the UCs, they're not going to be taking attendance. You're going to want to go to class, but they're not going to be going through and taking attendance. But at community colleges, we are required to take attendance. But again, Santa Barbara City College is absolutely beautiful. But it is going to be, you're going to need to get on a bus to get there or perhaps being driving. But, it's a great school up there. But definitely Santa Barbara is going to be pretty intense. Oh, by the way, like, is econ accounting as crazy as biophysics or one of those other majors? No. In fact, when I was at UCSB, there was a lot of I always said the best science dropouts make the best CPAs. Okay, now here's the thing about UCs versus the Cal States. Why, when you look at when you look at the system, right, there's only a couple pure business schools. One of those is Haas at Berkeley. Another one is UCI Paul Mirage. UCLA has business economics. They have no business program. Um, Also with like UC San Diego, it might be like international business. But in any event, when you look at Santa Barbara, when I went through, I was a business economics major. They no longer have that. Basically, it's now economics and accounting. So again, really basically, UCSB has again a very, very solid reputation. Employers love to go recruiting at UCSB. Why? Because it's UC Santa Barbara. There was someone who I've known since childhood. I'm still pretty sure he is the actual recruiter up there. I got to crash in on an event and go say hello, but I would not do it during his business hours. Okay, so here's what you have to do getting in there. Okay, so you have to have a 2.85. You're not in the major when you come in. You're going to arrive as a pre-economics and accounting major. You're not automatically admitted to the major. Basically, you've got to go through and complete Econ 5 and Econ 10A, and these are absolutely brutal, basically classes. And when you look at the other ones, basically how these other schools compare, oh, by the way, I didn't do any of this stuff. This is Gamma. Gamma does great PowerPoint, so thank you, Gamma. When you go ahead and you look at this, like Econ 5, Econ 10A, these are brutal classes. They're doable, but they kind of suggest that you take one of these in summer, which I would probably agree with. But you got to realize is that like at a community college, you're going to get the grade you earn. At these schools, they're really limiting access to econ and accounting. So what they're doing is they will curve down, meaning that this also happens at UCLA. At UCLA, you have to get a 3.5 in econ 11 and 41. At least that's what I last read. But here it's a 2.85. What does that mean? I could get a B minus and a B, but no less. If I can't, it has to be a 2.85. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through this process that you're going to have to take these two classes. One of my colleagues who graduated from SB, and I think he may have graduated in around 2017 or 2018, he said that Econ 10A was harder than any intermediate accounting class. And what that tells me is like, yeah, it's really tough. I do believe they allow retakes. So if you had to stay in the major, but I'm going to tell you right now, you've got to be on your A game. And that's just, it is what it is. So you got to get in there, you got to figure it out, start at the finish line, work backwards, and go and do it. They're tough. And again, this is how they weed out students, right? And so you have to really kind of like just get this basically, you just have to kind of basically realize is that you've got to, if you're going to go in here, like you've got to be on your A game. If you're going to UCLA, it's absolutely insane. But this is doable. You just have to be very, very diligent about it. Talk to former students. You're not the first one going through. Get on Reddit, get on some other forums. All those things you basically want to kind of be going through and doing. So again, I thank you for being here. Again, I want you to be successful in your transfer to UC Santa Barbara or to any school, but it's got to come from, you've got to come in ready. And this is why this thing is nuts. The job market right now is so competitive that if you want to go big four, you're gonna, I mean, I've known actually there's a freshman, somebody who was during their freshman year, they did an internship at Deloitte at IVC. I mean, she's amazing. But I'm going to tell you right now, you have to bring in your A game if you're looking to go big four. It's just something that basically that has to happen. And even if you're getting the interviews, then it's basically going through and getting through those interviews. It's a very, very challenging process. It's doable. But again, as a transfer student, you're at somewhat of a little bit of a disadvantage, right? Because if someone started out as econ and accounting, and like if you kind of look at me, I was an accounting, better word for it, I was a total accounting geek. By the time I got to the winter of this is when I was a junior, right? Basically, winter of 1990. I did my internship in the summer, and then I basically started full time basically at the end of those 2 years. By this time over here, I had completed the sequence of intermediate accounting. I was done with 136 A, B, and C, and the recruiter looked at me and said, wow, you've taken more classes than people that are applying for full time. So I was like, okay, it's very competitive. So you may be going up against students that are, that have been there for a while, whatever may have you. But let me share with you something just to kind of remember this. Community college students are extremely hardworking. They often do not come with attitude and entitlement. And when you get to these accounting firms, you have to go through and do work. Most students that are at community colleges have a lot of great work experience, which is going to go amazing on the resume. So if that's, basically, if you've been working, you've got to put that on your resume because when you apply for these accounting firms, that's a huge thing that's going to go through and set you apart. Like, how do you deal with others? How do you do conflict resolution? All of those things are extremely important. And why is that? Because they're putting you out of clients, they're having you engage with clients, and a lot of that client service is going to become absolutely critical. But again, go to the campus, check it out, and see what happens from there. I'll see you on the next video.